The fact that they were just talking about that as though it was not that big of a deal was legitimately terrifying. That is so crazy. Zelensky is not interested in ending the war. Dog, what are you talking about? Zelensky is not a fucking autonomous actor. Okay? Zelensky is not an actor with autonomy in this process. Okay? It is America that is the primary actor in this process. Dude, Russia is getting its back blown out. What do you mean? Wait, what? Dude. Look. Fuck Vladimir Putin. But if you're like looking at the situation in front of you and going, oh, Ukraine is doing a fantastic fucking job of like purging its ranks of the Russian forces, purging its territorial boundaries of the Russian forces, you haven't looked at a fucking map in like 3 years, I think. What the fuck are you talking about? Like, Russia has annexed eastern Ukrainian territories all the way to the Dnieper River and has maintained those positions and have also fucking fortified said positions. Like, refresh your fucking maps, chatter. Unless you literally think that like the push from Ukrainian forces into Russian territory was like a tremendous fucking win for Ukraine. Meanwhile, not only as far as I understand that Ukrainian offensive was neutralized, but also beyond that, in that process, because of the already strained resources of Ukraine, in that process, Russia was able to make territorial gains inside of Ukraine. It's horrifying. I keep up with the war and it's looking pretty bad for them. Also, free Palestine. I mean, free Palestine. It is looking bad for Russia in terms of like the amount of humans that they're just throwing into a fucking meat grinder. But I don't think it's like, I wouldn't say that Russia is getting its back blown out when Ukraine is running out of human beings to operate the weapons that we're giving them. This map puts everything into perspective for how bad Ukraine is off. These motherfuckers are building a goddamn land bridge to Transnistria at this point. Oh. Yeah, but Russia can't get half as far as they hope to. Yes, you're not wrong, but that's very different than like it's getting its back blown out. Getting its back blown out would be Donetsk and maybe that's it. No, getting its back blown out would be fucking these lines moving in the direction towards Russia. Okay? It's not. Yeah, by the way, I mean, when you got critical reporting from Western media that is also reporting on the matters and how bad the Ukraine front line looks like as Russian forces are through a sequence of horrifying trench warfare and a shit ton of like just throwing bodies at the fucking problem basically as they push further and further into Ukraine 1 inch at a time. And the American media is also covering it with these terms like, I don't know what you're reading. I don't know what you're reading that says that like they're losing and losing badly. What they should have done is exactly, they needed a go-getter on the front lines. A man who could bring forward at least 1,000 NATO-trained Afghan soldiers, okay, with fake paperwork. That is what Ukraine needed, and America cut his life short. He's not dead yet, and he won't, inshallah, he will never die. But, Mr. Ruth, sir, we need you. They need to deploy Ryan Ruth. Is YouTube clickbait videos that claim Russia is losing big every day? I mean, I don't know. I haven't been paying super close attention, but in terms of like what Ukraine needs at this stage, what Ukraine is asking for over and over again is the capacity to strike Russian targets inside of Russian soil with long-range ballistic missiles that they've gotten from the United States. America has not given them that clearance to do so. But also giving them that clearance to do so is I don't know. I don't know if that's going to like genuinely change the trajectory of the war. Did they give them that? Did they give them that clearance today? I think I put a good summary on Ukraine. Read my logs. Ultimately, both Russia's own willingness What? I think Russia got forced state from Ukraine. Oppressed people deserve support against their oppressors. I don't think endless militarization is the solution. Flooding Ukraine with weapons risks prolonging the conflict, escalating violence, and increasing civilian suffering without addressing the root causes. I prioritize diplomacy and peace over military escalation and militarism, not the people on the ground. No, no, no. Instead of more arms, we should push for genuine peace talks, economic aid, and rebuilding efforts to support Ukraine's long-term stability. Ultimately, both Russia's unwillingness to compromise and the West's strategy of supporting Ukraine militarily are significant barriers to peace talks. For negotiations to succeed, there needs to be international pressure on both sides to prioritize diplomacy over military solutions. Okay, well, you didn't say anything different than what I have said, which is that all conflicts end with treaties. I've been saying this since fucking day one. And the quicker you arrive at that position, when you have more leverage, the better. And as time goes by, as the Ukrainian forces wither away as a direct consequence of a lack of manpower, regardless of how many weapons you're giving to Ukraine, or even allowing them to have like long-range targeting capabilities be deployed inside of Russian territory, I am not so convinced that this will genuinely change the outcome or the trajectory of Russia's invasion. One thing that was, I think, even more instructive than Lindsey Graham and Elizabeth Warren demonstrating the bipartisan nature of and the genuine material interest in our unlimited support for Ukraine that was actually totally fake and not interested in like Ukrainian emancipation, but simply funneling funding our military industrial complex. Beyond that statement that they both agreed to and repeated, that with 5% of our military budget that we have given to Ukraine, we are, one, offloading all of our refurbished and older weapons. Two, we are able to, create new weapons and more artillery. It's actually great for the American economy. It's a real booster. That's why he went to the Scranton artillery shell facility the other day, which is a really, 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 and I cannot stress this enough, really dangerous prospect for the American future, especially as we are a dying empire. We are going to swing violently and wildly in every direction, it seems. Okay. And claiming that with just 5% of our military budget, without a single American active duty service member dying, we've been able to wither away 50% of our foreign adversaries' military, right? That's fantastic from the eyes of the cold, bloodless calculation from our politicians who don't care about anything really. Having said that, however, I think one of the more informative moments was when Russia was escalating the threat of a nuclear strike. This was early on, where they said they are moving mobile nuclear nuclear missile launchers into, I think it was like Belarus or something. And this was a genuinely panic moment, big red flag. Okay. In Trump's universe, the N-word, right? And I recall clearly at the time, very vivid moment, when you had military analysts that went on CNN and basically undermined the severity of nuclear conflict by stating, if Russia deploys a nuke, it'll just be a tactical nuke. It'll be a baby nuke, and it will only hit Ukraine. That was one of the most terrifying things I had ever heard a military analyst say, because in my mind, that was basically softening American sentiment towards nuking an entire part of Ukraine potentially. The fact that they were just talking about that as though it was not that big of a deal, okay, was legitimately terrifying. And it, in my opinion, showed America's lack of interest in the humanity of Ukrainians in this process. What is this? And goods are still flowing into Russia in vast quantities despite sanctions. Of how the economic war waged by the G7 is failing. What is this? Ed Conway. Of how eyewitness sanctions rules broken in plain sight. Here's the story of a chart. Here's the chart in question. It shows UK car exports to Russia. When Russia invaded Ukraine, the UK, and for that matter, most of the G7 imposed sanctions on Russia. So exports of cars to Russia stopped. End of story, right? Wrong, because now look at what happened to the exports. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Of course. Russia has never stopped receiving goods from G7 nations because they just get it from a middleman. They get it from Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Kazakhstan. Same with everything else. Most economists and sanctions experts presume cars aren't actually ending up in Azerbaijan or Georgia. They get shuffled around the Caucasus before being funneled into Russia via the back door. That's critical because the lack of data trail connecting the cars to Russia allows the UK motor industry to insist is not happening, that most of those cars do not indeed end up in Azerbaijan. Bro, how do you think Ramazan Kadyrov literally gets to ride around in a Cybertruck? Like, what do you think that is? That's a flex. That's to be like, look, see, I have a Cybertruck. And apparently Elon Musk figured out which Cybertruck it was and maybe shut it off. Obviously, there is no real tactical purpose of posturing around a fucking battlefield with a goddamn Cybertruck with a weapon attached to the back of it. The problem there is that it's not for real tactical use at all. That is a way to say, we have the means. And Elon Musk said that he actually was able to shut it down, if I'm not mistaken. But the next day, there was another Cybertruck, and he was driving around with it again to say we have multiple. There's no tactical advantage whatsoever to a Cybertruck. It's a tactical disadvantage, chat. No shit, there's no tactical advantage to a Cybertruck. A Cybertruck is quite the opposite of a tactical advantage. It is a tactical disadvantage. It's an electric vehicle that actually sucks. Car industry says nothing to see here, just an economic boom in the Caucasus, which has also, by the way, suddenly discovered an appetite for drone parts and radar equipment and all the other dual-use goods sanctioned and banned from Russia. Funny that. A few weeks ago, we received the tip-off. Some pictures of the border between Russia and Georgia showing a host of luxury cars waiting to cross. Those cars included many Porsches, Mercedes, BMWs, and 2 Range Rovers. British cars. It seems to be the proof we're looking for. What the fuck? This guy went to the border? There were Porsches, Mercedes, Maybachs, BMWs, high-end Toyota Land Cruisers, seriously expensive cars, mostly German, but those Range Rovers our contact has sent us weren't there. Milling around the car park were quite a few men. Most didn't want to talk, but some explained what was happening. One man picks up the cars, mostly one at a time, and loads them into a truck. Sometimes they come straight from the port, sometimes elsewhere in the Caucasus. They take them to the border and drop them off in one of 2 makeshift car parks where they wait until the paperwork is done. That paperwork is usually carried out remotely by a separate broker. I mean, it just makes it more expensive. That's it. It's the same process in which, like, you get the same fucking energy, but you get it by way of India. I thought with sanctions, it was understood that some products will still arrive in the country. Yeah, the car example is just one example of a consumer good that's not like a dual use, that doesn't have any sort of dual use. The way this process works for cars also is the exact same way that it works for drone parts and shit like that. It's just like one aspect of this process. Yeah, I mean, Israel also refused to give an Iron Dome to Ukraine, but anyway. God damn, dude. Holy shit.